Welcome, Divine Hearts, and thank you so much for joining us again. This week, we have a wonderful guest returning to us. She is Julie Dhara Roberts, and Julie is a celestial shaman. She is a journey guide, she is a gatekeeper and a grid keeper, and she's a star seer. That's what I like to call us, a new name for you. So thank you so much, Julie, for joining us again this week. It's such a joy to have you here again.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Lois. It's so fun to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Let's dive in straight away into the 2022 energies. What you've experienced so far in the beginning of us entry into this year. If there's anything sort of that stands out for you. I know you've been busy. You've got snow codes all around you there, and you've been playing a lot in the snow as well with your angaras. So you share with us the themes maybe, or the experiences or the frequencies that you've been feeling so far.
Okay. It feels like we've been in 2022 for a long time, doesn't it? Like the time has been, yes. So it's, yes. I can share like on a personal level and then more like on a planetary or like celestial level. They all interrelate, of course. It feels like every day is like the codes of a year, what used to be coming through. Like it just feels like a lot. Like, and the time is very pliable, and some days seem to last like for a long time, and like then some days are like in the, like, if we cast our glance at the skies or the celestial sphere, the alignments, so for 2022 we're very front loaded with a lot of the alignments that are going to happen. A lot of the planets are conjuncting the sun and each other. And all that, like a lot of that happens in January, February, March, you know, a couple things in April, May, but like January, February, March are star-studded as far as alignments. And it's been very inward for me too. Like there's a lot of, you know, I think a lot of us that talk about the codes and building with light have seen the 222 and the whole builder code thing has been happening, you know, been tossed around by a lot of people that do sharing about code building, right? So the 2-2s being like the building codes. But for me, I feel like what's happened is, you know, if you were to take a vehicle and like scrap it for parts and like take it all apart, disassemble it, and then like lay it bare on the garage floor. That was January. Like, I'm like, I've been stripped for parts and I'm like, piecemeal spread out on the ground. That was January. And then 2020, February feels like it's been sorting. Like when I play Legos with my kids, like this is my like nature. I was like, put them in color coded piles and like sort them and like, oh, the 4-piece that's blue or the 4-piece that's green. And then that's what it feels like February has been, like the sorting hat in Harry Potter, like sorting, putting things in piles, like assembling content codes, information, or like at a building site, like a job, if you're building a skyscraper, yes, right? Like yes. You have like, oh, the I-beams are over here, and then like the gravel's over here, and the sand is over here. And I just feel like things have been broken down to parts, and then like moving around, sorting around. And for me personally, I'm like, I can feel that the building will be coming, the building stage of things, but it's more in the preparations. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, yeah. And it's a lovely little images there that you've. And then
the planetary alignments a couple of years ago, for me as like a role to play with and to enjoy for myself, I was shown to like pay attention to the alignments as we go through a calendar year, like the planetary alignments, the sun and it's conjuncting the planets in a way that it like, let's say this well, like each planet really represents a solar aspect. And I was shown to work with, so we have the 8 or 9, but we don't count the Earth so much. It's like we are the Earth, right? But so we have the 8 planets, including Pluto, and then the 4 minor planets. and how those 12 really represent like a strand of the DNA or a soul aspect. So going through a calendar year and feeling the pings and how they code with the sun and how they code with each other, and like allowing that to bring forth one of our, like a strand of our solar aspect or solar DNA.
Wow, that's
Does that make
beautiful.
sense?
Yes, it does. Really beautifully put. And it leads really nicely to what I wanted to ask you about. We have sort of planetary alignments, these conjunctions, planetary, then the solar conjunctions, and then the lunar conjunctions, and the sort of the different sort of alchemy that occurs during those processes, or the general frequencies that we can expect to feel from, say, a lunar conjunction to a solar conjunction and a planetary conjunction. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about just general, what we could expect, from those conjunctions.
That's a super cool question. Thank you. I don't know that I've ever, I mean, I thought about it like that, but it's cool. It puts it into a nice tapestry. So to me, the sun, it has a lot of gold codes and source codes and firepower, illumination, fusion, electrification, charge, plasma. So a planetary, so I should say, like, all of this is like viewed from on Earth, like, so do you know we know what the celestial sphere is? Like, basically, if we were sitting in a planetarium together and we looked up at the black dome of the planetarium, and the projection of that dome, in astronomy, they call that the celestial sphere, like the black night sky and what you can see across it. So the like celestial alignments are all relative to Earth, right? Obviously, like on the day that Mars conjuncts Jupiter or whatever, those two planets aren't getting next to each other, literally, right? It's just from our vantage point. So
yes,
I'm going to go back to like, so it's all like geometries, and like, so there's stargates. So I call them celestial stargates. Some stargates are like planetary or terrestrial stargates, are places on the Earth that people use to download star codes. Celestial stargates to me are more these alignments that you see. So it's a conjunction and opposition, 90 degrees apart, or this, one of the favorite ones for me is like the sunrise and sunset, like something that's happening kind of like how the sun and moon behave on full moons. But go back to your question. So you asked about, so when a planet moves with the sun in the sky, they move together, and it feels like the sun is double broadcasting. It's broadcasting its own solar codes, but then say the sun is with Venus. It's like the solar rays are broadcast, like this, we're getting the solar rays and then codes from Venus simultaneously. So whatever that planetary aspect is, and people can interpret the planets differently. It's like, oh, we're getting like bombarded with Venus because the sun is like
amplifying.
Thank you. Boosting.
Yes.
It's like a Wi-Fi booster,
yes,
right, around your house. Like, it's like, oh, like we bring the sun over to the Venus, and it's like shining the Venus codes at us, literally and energetically. So the moon, when the moon goes into the sky next to a planet, it does the things like lunar codes. The moon by its nature is reflective. So that's why like some people associate it more with that inward, like it receives light and then like a mirror, like reflects it back out. So it has a softer, it's not a radiant body like the sun, it's a reflective body. So we get more the, in Chinese, I would say the yin aspect of the planet, or the inward aspect of the planet, or the subtler levels in some ways. Does that make sense? So anything is like yin and yang, masculine, feminine, sun and moon. Like the sun is more, and the moon has more of like let's just like relax back into the feeling sense of this and see what's deeper about the planet. So the moon being next to Saturn, for instance, transmits the codes in a different way, and like a more subtle, soft, and maybe even like, you know how we can't see unless you use a mirror, you can't see the backside of your body, and the way that the earth and the moon are, we don't see the dark side of the moon, like that, like it's that back body yin reflective quality that the moon provides us when it does a conjunction.
Wow. So it's offering up energetically a holistic exchange or activation between the solar and the lunar, and then these planetary. And you said something really beautiful there, because it's shifted my perspective, of course, with these planetary conjunctions. It's not coming close to each other necessarily. It's just from our perspective, that's what we see. So it's just like personal messages, or personal for us here. This is what it means for you here, but for somebody else sitting on another planet somewhere else, it's going to mean maybe something else. So that's
or it's not even an alignment. Like it's not like if we were sitting on Mars, it's a whole different set of codes or a whole different set of alignments. It's almost like you play with, I know you have kids too, like playing with Play-Doh, you know, those like things where you can form, like you put like a triangle on the Play-Doh and you squeeze it through and it makes like a triangle. Like the geometry of where the planets are on that celestial sphere almost create like a sieve or a filter, or like, that's why a lot of us draw like the light codes with the lines, you know, it's like it creates a different geometric.
Yes.
And it's like the geometric pattern that really delivers the code. Like it's a sound, light, shape, wave, particle, all at the same time.
What do you feel? How do you feel about maybe the energies of the sun, or the energies of the moon, or the celestial sphere at night around you, where you live, especially because you are immersed in snow for a lot of time during the year, and how you know that crystalline frequency.
Yeah, the winter is like, it's the best viewing time, because, you know, astronomers say that, you know, the cold air actually slows down the particles. You can literally see stars better because the sky is crisper. But it, the reflective quality of the snow with the moon, with the stars of the moon, like that's beautiful too. But it's, you know, your human body gets cold pretty fast too. Yes. So you have to be like ready for it. So in some ways, like the summertime, you can luxuriate outside because it's warmer, you know, but it's more, it crisps everything up. The cold. It's like it crisps up. So in summer, I could like biddy around for like, you know, 25 minutes outside. This is like, you get 3 minutes till your fingers freeze. So you get in there, you get it done, you get back in your car. As far as like, you know, coding with Andaras or taking pictures or that kind of thing. It's a different, so can I just answer? I want to answer the third part of your question, because you asked about planets.
Yes.
And since the Andaras came up too, I think I've noticed with the Andaras that, you know, say you have one that's purple and one that's green, and you put them next to each other, like they talk to each other, they cross code together. And the codes, I think the sunlight that shines through them, like might project onto like a white surface, and the codes like layer up on top of each other.
Yes, and you have beautiful images on your website of those patterns that they created together, which is beautiful.
So the planets do that too. So I call that the cross coding. So I bring up Andaras because I think it's, you know, it's easier to see because they're tangible and we hold them and take pictures of them. And the planets kind of do that too. Like when Mars and Mercury, or instance, or Mars and Venus go next to each other, to me, I feel like they're cross coding. Mm-hmm. They're sharing, they're exchanging, kind of like what we're doing in this conversation, right?
Yes.
We're cross-coding or exchanging codes. So a planetary conjunction, planet to planet, is more of a code share.
Yes.
So that's the third part of you asked me, like those three things. So they feel, you know, how they provide or what we might feel under them, it's, that's like a differing, the planet on planet ones are more complex and they happen less often. So the other thing about the moon is the fastest moving thing in the sky, right? The moon's like in a different spot every hour. The outer planets like Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, they kind of station in the sky, and the other planets kind of move around, in relation to them. The inner planets that are closer to Earth, like the rocky midgets, as they call them, the Mercury, the Venus, the Mars, they move a lot quicker in the sky. Jupiter and Saturn are sort of medium. They move certainly faster than Pluto, but their conjunctions come. So it's like a dance too. It's like, it's like a contact improv in the sky, where like they move along each other and they'll like catch up to each other. And then of course there's what people call the retrograde. Like sometimes they're moving forward, they're not actually moving. It's just it's a function of where we are, if they're closer to the sun than us or further from the sun than us. And, sometimes when we see they're like on the other side of the sun, but we can still see them in the sky. So anyway, it's like this cosmic dance party, as I see it. And then when certain, dance partners get together, they sparkle codes at each other or with each other.
And we get to feel them in whatever way is highest aligned for us, which is beautiful. You've mentioned that we, at the beginning of 2022, is sort of packed with the biggest conjunctions.
I wrote them down because I was like, I can't there's so many, I can't remember them.
You don't have, but the ones that have piqued your interest, maybe for you to share those.
Well, Venus. So we started up January 8th, Venus conjuncted the sun. Okay. And that was like, for me, that was huge. Descent into the underworld. So this is what Venus kind of showed us this pretty dramatically this year, because a planet will go from being a night star that you see at twilight to a morning star that you see before sunrise, right? So Venus was like really prominent for us here, all what we would call fall, what you would call spring, the September through December. Venus, it was like, whoa, what's that? A lot of people ask me, what's that bright thing, right? Because Venus has been very bright lately. And then when the planetary body or star, the light in the sky catches up with the sun, it goes invisible for a little while because it's absorbed, it's in the glow of the sun. So we can't see it separately. And then when it moves away from the sun enough for us to see it, it appears in the morning sky. So Venus is what they call the dawn star now. So you have to get up between the 4 a.m., 6 a.m. and see it in the morning sky. Now the planets as the sun, so January 8th was Venus, January 16th was Pluto. These are all with the sun. January 23rd was Mercury. Then the sun went to visit Saturn on February 4th. And now in March, we have the sun going to visit, when I say go to visit, just in the sky.
Yes.
Jupiter, and then Neptune, all before spring equinox, or all before March equinox. So that's what I'm going to say. It's power packed. That's a lot of solar planet conjunctions happening in a short amount of time.
Yes. And they feel like they're not the soft, gentle planets either. These are really, because you've mentioned sort of introspective, going deeper, and this image of you as all these car parts on the floor in the garage waiting to be put together again. That's those frequencies, in a sense. They're big, they're really big, and they're really calling to really take a deep look and to be honest with the self. So they're big frequencies all coming up, which is really interesting right at the beginning of 2022. So then, in a sense, to have the rest of the 2022 to do the building, to bring it together after having that introspective time. But you carry on.
No, it's good. That So Mercury conjuncts the sun a lot. So the Mercury is the closest orbit to the sun. So it doesn't stray very far from the sun. So we'd have, 10 Mercury sun conjunctions in a calendar year. Whereas most planets, you'd have one or none, like depending how the calendar year falls, right? So Mercury is like a common accelerant, if you will. It's like Quicksilver, and it has that like mental, it kind of like sparks the things. It's like in between, or the palate cleanser, something like that.
Yeah.
Because Mercury happens quite often. So we had Venus, Pluto, Mercury, which was a kind of a deep. So the other thing you had asked me when we were email exchanging to set up for this is you had asked me if like we could talk about the Aquarian gates.
Yes. Yes.
So just because I get a lot of questions about this all the time, but after I talk about it. So astrology is a branch of a science that the spring equinox happened in the sign of Aries, and that happens like every March or whatever like that. And they don't use the precession of the equinoxes. So like if somebody said, oh, the sun is in Pisces from an Aquarian chart, from the astrological chart point of view, that's kind of like fixed and it doesn't change year after year.
Yes.
But if for a celestial alignment, like what we're talking about is like, where is Venus in the night sky? What constellation is it in? Which is going to be a different, sometimes they overlap, but it's going to be a different answer than what house is it in or what sign is it in.
Yes.
Just in case anyone watching this is in astrology, like, wait a minute, that Venus alignment wasn't in Aquarius. Like we're talking about astronomical or celestial alignments, like where you see things in the sky. So Pluto is stationed. I always said Pluto is really slow moving. So in the constellation of Sagittarius, which is the like centaur, the bow pulling, it's like stationed over the hindquarters, just like above the rump.
That makes sense.
Sagittarius.
Yes.
So Pluto's going to be there for years and years and years. It doesn't move very fast.
Yeah.
So that's like Pluto's stationed there. Venus moves pretty quickly through the sky. So Venus, when Venus met Pluto, it was one place, but right now, I know I kind of want to, can I show it to you? I wonder if this will work if I hold up my phone. Let's see. I have screenshots of them too, but I didn't ask you beforehand if we could.
Oh, of course you can.
Screenshot. No, if we could do like a screen share, but I'm honestly not that set up for that, but I can put those they will be on my website so people can look. But if I hold that up, can you see that?
Oh, I can see. Yes. Yes.
She's the water bearer.
Yes.
Like, so her stream of, I know it's a little bit side. Here we go. So that's visible. So you see how Saturn and Mercury are on one arm of her, and then the sun and Jupiter on the other side of, like, a lot of the planets are in the constellation of Aquarius right now. So these alignments that I'm talking about happen in that constellation, and like one under her left arm, one under her right arm. And people that do embodiment work with the planets, and this is what I've noticed occasionally, like when it moves through a constellation that has, this is of course in the ancient, like, the Greek or the Romans, whoever made this constellation, if it looks like a lady, like Virgo does, or the twins, Gemini looks like people. When the sun or a planetary body moves through the constellation like that, in the picture of it, like sometimes the parts of our human bodies get really pinged by where the sun is. Like I've had such leg, like thighs, knees, feet, shins, ankles, ankle, like Achilles heel, like tendons in the ankles and the feet. And I know it's like sort of energetic upgrades and light body things. But then I'll like look at one of these things on my Starfinder app, and I'm like, oh, the plant, like when I was having this pain in my thigh, I was like, oh, the sun is like sitting on Aquarius's thigh, the water bearer's thigh right now. And so it's just like it's, not to say that it's not
that's interesting
too, but that's like an overlay of what's happening for our embodiment form is like,
wow.
I also read something, and I should have it more up, but they were talking about like, so we're after the things move out of Aquarius, they go to Pisces, the next constellation on the zodiac. And between Aquarius and Pisces, they mentioned even Achilles heel. I was like, oh, it's like knees, ankles, feet, shins. I was like, oh, okay. We're just like kind of coding in, like the Aquarian gate for me has been very leg activating, which doesn't have to mean anything for anybody else. Like, it's not like universally true, but I'm just saying what's happened for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, Neptune is kind of there too. Does that make sense? So the
yes,
Aquarian,
it does.
the Aquarian gates are like,
yes,
there's a bunch of planets.
There are other light keepers that have been mentioning the Aquarian frequencies in different ways. And it's really interesting. So Patricia Dhara Roberts spoke about the Aquarian gateways opening at the beginning of February. And so I found that really interesting. And then you have Amanda Lawrence speaking about her experience of looking at the sun and seeing this ray coming out of the sun, a white ray, creating a diamond, the formation of a diamond. So seeing that being formed, and she saw that 3 times. And for me, just being called to create Andara grids and lots of the aqua ray, all of the aqua rays. So like I thought I'd share, so that and that, so like white and aqua, and then seeing, and taking a deeper look into, so what's the, looking at, feeling into what the aqua ray feels like, and I'm seeing Aquarius, the aqua ray in Aquarius, and then what is that? So it's like, it's a mixture of the white frequency and the blue frequency coming into this sort of a celestial watery frequency.
It's the water, because she's the water bearer, but she's pouring. It's like a waterfall. Waterfalls have been big, and it's like the cascading water that makes the froth. And to me, the froth is the white.
And then the diamond that Amanda was experiencing for me is like the diamond codes, because it's the crystalline. It's this purity. So it's like, and also for me, it feels like it's this Lemurian frequency again. So it's creating this new foundation and this frequency coming in to assist. So it's just interesting, because I feel like, so
the sun. Yeah, is this a good way to do it?
Yes.
You have the sun sitting right in the water pore of the Aquarius.
And it looks aqua from here as well.
Well, it's because it's weird. But that, like, so Jupiter has been sitting in the water bearers, waterfall. And the sun and Jupiter are going to conjunct in just a couple days, March 5th. So the sun has been moving. So, we like, for you, the aqua ray has been coming through, and the Aquarian ray, it's like, that's what I was saying, like where the sun broadcasts from where it is, like the sun is hanging out in the Aquarius constellation. So it's broadcasting aqua codes. And so a lot of us, it's cool. I find that for like Andara keepers all around the globe, like a lot of us will pick the same rays to just the Andaras, show us what to do. Or like, we're on these rays and we're doing this. And like, it's like the aqua comes in, and it's really from the sun. I find like it's the sun's coding to show us. It's like, that's the ray, the dominant ray of that day or that month.
Yes.
Work with.
And the Jupiter is interesting that you're speaking that Jupiter is there too, because Jupiter, as I was looking into, because I'm going to ask you a little bit about Pluto in a minute, because that's sort of, you've mentioned it's been moving slowly, but that's been pinging up in my universe to take a deeper look at that, because the role of the frequencies at this time and sort of Pluto representing this really deep going in, and these it speaks about making permanent changes, and it feels like when we have Mercury retrogrades, the dredging up of, but it's so necessary, and it is a blessing. And then the Pluto feels like that, but it's happening really slowly. There's no going away from trying to hide from seeing something, or it's really asking us to, everything's under reconstruction in a way now. Everything has to be re-evaluated in a sense, and that this is happening really long. And then for Jupiter, because again, I mentioned last time when we were together about the Grecian myths and how they represent certain things, and all these ancient myths around the planet, and often how the ancients would interpret the movements, the celestial movements in these beautiful stories. So with Pluto, and so in the myths, it's the story about Kronos. So Kronos was the son of Uranus, and in the myth, Kronos eats his children, or eats his son, just because he was afraid that there would be that the children would try to take over his power. Yeah. So he ate his children, in a sense, in a planetary sense. Then looking at if a planet is hidden within the shadow of the sun, or, you know, that we're looking at, is that how they interpreted that this big planet was eating up this other smaller planet because it would look smaller. Or then
even, I don't know if you know this, but the Pluto's orbit is a much tighter ellipse. It's not as much of a circular ellipse.
Yes.
So sometimes Pluto is closer to Earth than Neptune in certain parts of the orbit. So that maybe is an interpretation of, like, you know, the eating.
Yes, exactly.
And it's I wanted to mention too for you, though, you talked about Mercury and Pluto. So I didn't give you the dates for I just gave you the sun and planet conjunctions. We've had some planet on planet action. So February 12th was Venus and Mars conjuncted on February 12th, but so did Mercury and Pluto. Now, they all weren't all four together, but they were pretty close to each other in the Sagittarius constellation. But Mercury and Pluto on February 12th, because you were talking about how those two work together. So what I got from that, so for myself, I don't like to be I am not in the business of forecasting or predicting what that alignment's going to feel like.
Yeah.
Partially because a lot of what our astrology and astronomy is like from the past knowledge. Mm-hmm. And, you know, this is one of the last 5 years, one of the things that one of my aha moments of, like, some of our mentors, I know we share a bunch of mentors that, you know, work with planetary stuff and grid work. You know, the Earth is ascending, we're ascending, but all the planets in the solar system are ascending too. So what Pluto used to mean, like, let's leave room for a planet's ascended aspects to come through. Like, Mars doesn't have to mean war every time. Yes. Venus doesn't have to mean lovemaking every time. You know, it's, yes, sure. But they're ascending too, and their codes are different now. But so anyway, but that is part of it too, because a lot of if you project story, or like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to feel during a Mercury Pluto, it doesn't leave room for the new.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So people ask me all the time, what is that supposed to mean? I was like, I don't know. Let's go through it together and find out, and then talk about it on the other side. Right. That's just my method. Yeah. But so the Mercury and Pluto, while that was happening, and I kind of tuned in and was asking, and I was like, oh, it felt like the pull of the polarity, like the planet that's the closest to the sun, that's the hottest, and the planet that's the coldest and furthest from the sun. Now, I don't know about where you live, but I live in the United States, and we're kind of at that, like, you know, the elastic band of polarity. Every day we're like, could it pull any further apart? And it's like, oh, geez. It's like, so that slingshot of polarity of, like, like that had that, some of that Mercury Pluto coding had a lot of that for me. Like, just we're like, oh, okay, we could stretch a little, like, before we, like, sweetly find that unified field.
Yeah.
That we're all longing to see in the external world too. Like we feel it inside. But.
Yeah. And it feels like that's the inevitable conclusion. It's just the going through the workings of it now. It just feels like this little tunnel, especially with Pluto. I don't know why. It was just something that
so Mars and Pluto are coming together. So can you believe we're talking now on February 27th. I'm not sure when you all out there will watch this, but it'll be probably sometime this week that we both share it. So, but March is Tuesday, it's Sunday now, or at least I know we're in different parts of the globe, so it's different. But so Mercury and Saturn are meeting up March 2nd, and that might change. That's based on my Eastern USA code, but even the March 2nd, March 3rd time. And Mars and Pluto meet up March 3rd. Venus and Pluto meet up March 5th. And Venus and Mars again. So Venus and Mars, we're in a corridor of triple conjunction of Venus and Mars, kind of because Venus did a little retrograde dance. So they met up in July, mid-July, the 12th, 13th. They met up February 12th, 13th, and again, March 12th, 13th. This is Venus and Mars. And before that happens, they both met up with Pluto. It's just like, it's like this cross-coding. It's like almost like the telephone game of like, okay, Venus is going to say a little thing to Pluto and then go talk to Jupiter and then go over here and talk. It's like the code exchange and like how then they emerge is fascinating to play with.
It is fascinating. It is fascinating.
So this next week, we have quite a bit of Pluto activity for you to play with. And
wow.
There were so many of them. So we could post it if you want. Like I did put this all up on my website because it was so much. I couldn't even for someone who likes to keep track of dates, it's too much to keep track of. I just have to keep referring to my own notes and stuff because I'm like, oh yeah, what's happening the next day? Like I can keep like a week at a time in my head, but then isn't it just beautiful? It's just like, again, it's just another way of, it's just a beautiful little way of looking at this huge support system that we are within ourselves and that we can see in many different ways. But we could go out in nature and we could see the same sort of frequencies interpreted in different ways there, or we could look into the celestial realms, probably look into the oceanic world too and interpret it in those ways as well. I just love the way that there's just creativity in the way that we can interpret or find deeper meanings for us maybe in these different things to understand, that's interesting to know that was occurring right at this very moment when this happened to me, or I felt this, or, did we talk about last time we spoke? I can't remember, or if having deja vu with you, or did we talk about the star of Inanna or the star of Ishtar?
No.
So when Venus, during the Venus and Sun conjunction, a piece of information that came through to me, I was shown very much for myself to pay attention to the rainbow light body this year. Like that's been a thing. That's the rainbow. The rainbow has been very prevalent. Rainbow halos around the sun, rainbow halos around the moon, assisting people or doing sessions for people and activating their rainbow, assisting them to activate their rainbow light bodies, getting Andara teams together that do rainbow coding, all kinds of rainbow. It's been rainbow. And then I could feel this correlation between Venus and the rainbow, but I didn't have any linear human facts to back that up, which is fine. I just okay, I wonder what Venus has to do with the rainbow. Then I kept, the Venus's orbit makes a pentagon, it's one of its shapes. But I was I kept feeling into this 8-pointed stuff, 8, octagon or 8, the color of the rainbow is 8, if you include white, the unified color. But then I found this, when you find one of those little bits of the golden nuggets of information. So I found this content about the star of Venus or the star of Ishtar or the star of Inanna. And it's this ancient Can I run and go get it for you? Because I drew it out.
Go, yes.
It's right over here. I can still talk. It's an 8-pointed star, and it's color coded with the rainbow. This is my drawing of it.
Oh.
But but each in the star of Venus, they assign. It talks about the cosmic rays coming through, and they assign each color. Like it's kind of like the compass rose in that it's north, south, east, west, and then northeast, north, southeast, south by southwest, and they assign colors to the planets in this like construct. It's like the red is like the northeast has to the cosmic ray coming from Mars, and they like assign a color code and a direction to each of the planets on the star. That's been super fun to play with. And I have, once my linear brain kicks back in and I move out of the phase, I have some sharings in general to put out about that. So I will do that.
That's beautiful. That's
as soon
beautiful.
as they come along. But it's very, it's been really fun to play with too. But that feeling, I was like, oh, that's how Venus, like the coding of Venus and the rainbow. You know, when you have those moments where you have those inner knowings, and like, oh, I know these go together. Yes. But then you get the key code that bridges that.
And it's
bridging too. That's been another huge.
Bridging. It's been the rays, looking into the rays more and more, coming to understand just a little bit more, just little breadcrumbs here and there.
Yeah, because the rainbow rays, whether you're going to call them the rainbow rays of creation or the rainbow rays, like the rays are living beings. Like they're like the red ray is a thing, like it communicates itself, like in color code and in sound code and
I found it really interesting because my universe has been just dangling little things. Like I've been looking into the blue ray, but then the aqua ray too, and then this connection, this feeling into the blue ray, and the connection with the past of how we used to manifest and the way that we used the blue ray, and then seeing, oh, but it's only blue in your earthly realm. It's another frequency and color beyond that. So don't get too hung up on that. But it's like,
but you could recognize its signature.
Yeah.
Because like our eyeballs will see it as blue here on Earth with our yellow star. Like you might, as you journey to another place or like, it's like, you can recognize the frequency, but it'll show up as maybe like a pink. If our star was a green star or like a red star, it's like the color coding of each star.
Yes.
It's different. Our Solaris, our sun, has this rainbow coding, but we can't assume that every star has that same.
No.
That makes sense?
It does. And well, yeah, because then you're going to, we're seeing the frequencies we are seeing from the frequencies that we hold, but also there's going to be a whole universe of new colors and frequencies that we are yet to experience. And with the blue, what I found really interesting was, how the way of creation felt like now we were moving into utilizing a new frequency, like this aqua ray, of being able to create differently with this new frequency, so that we could say sun,
our solar system is like literally scientifically orbiting around the galaxy, and the galaxy has these photonic bands of light, these cosmic streams. Like our whole solar system is moving into a part, and this goes to the if you look at the Vedas and they talk about the yugas cycles, or any of the different places that talk about these like cycles of ascension and descension and light and dark. The they all are timed with how long does it take our sector of the galaxy, our solar system, to orbit around the center of the galaxy. It's like 250 million years, billion years. I forget which Ilian it is, but a long time. But that, like, while we're doing that, there are parts of the galaxy that are more star-studded, that are more coded. And then there are these things called cosmic streams, which are really just like they're streams of star particles. They're streams of brilliant things that we don't even know or understand from our little vantage point here on Earth. But our whole solar system, all the planets and the sun, our whole section of the galaxy really is moving as this galaxy spins. Like, we're moving into a different part of space. And that part of space is more light encoded. So what, like, everything's changing. Like, what the sun is a rebroadcast station of source light. So if the sun is in a different part of the galaxy or a different sector, what it's broadcasting is different too.
And that is the story, in a sense, of what we're doing. This is we're broadcasting from a new space from within us. And another thing that the universe has been just showing recently is this, the infinity symbol. And I want to link it up to one of your services, because you offer polarity theory. I was taking a look at that, this polarity theory healing. So it's like looking at the infinity symbol, and with the heart open, how we are then able to completely change and transform the way our energy system moves. Now we're becoming into alignment with the magnetic field of the planet. Everything is connected when we move in this way. And then with your polarity theory, well, yes, of course, the working from one place is going to affect the complete.
Can I go quantum on you a little bit too? That's an orbit. Like, there are different shapes of. So if we go quantum to molecular physics or molecular quantum mechanics, there are different orbital shapes for the electrons to orbit about the nucleus, and some are circular. But there's one, I think it's the S or the P. It's been a while since I took organic chemistry that move in a figure eight. So it's, we're talking about and photonic light is like, a photon is the bundle of energy that will lift an electron from one orbital state to another. That's the scientific one. It's like, so it's like when you want to excite something or elevate it or increase its light quotient or ascend it, whatever you want to, all those words mean the same thing. It's like you're popping it up, like you get enough photonic light and your electrons literally move up into another orbital around you. So your cells are buzzing. So the figure eight thing is at a really deep quantum cellular activation level.
And you described it so beautifully there, because it, for me, just feels like this is where we're at. We're given this opportunity to be able to do this now.
Geek in me wants to go look, but I'm going to let it go. I'm like, which one is the figure eight? Because I wasn't planning on talking about orbital.
I'm so sorry.
But one of them is shaped like anyone can go and Google it too. It's like, oh, that's another, and it's a higher, there's something to it too, of the transformation between the carbon and the silica based as we move into crystalline beings.
Yes.
There must be something, Algo, this is a note to self. There must be something in the orbitals of the silica that have more of the figure eight orbits to them.
It's just beautiful, because we just get to see these, but then it's huge. Everything is connected. Everything's linked up to. So the Aquarian ray, all of it is linked up to, and the 222 all beautifully together in ways.
Yeah. Well, we're in this cosmic stew, if you will. So we're talking about the things that are coming from the sun to our planet. And then, I mean, that's a whole nother topic is the solar cycle and the the solar coronal mass ejections and the more literal plasma that's coming our way to planet Earth and the energetics of that. But then because of the fluctuations of the sun, the magnetosphere of the earth fluctuates. And we're also, so the other thing I was talking about is like what part of the galaxy we're in. Is like we're getting cosmic rays. So we get code and incoming from outer space, if you will, or from deep space. And we get codes from within our solar system. And then, it's all affecting us on a cellular level. It's like all, it's all happening simultaneously. So we're not necessarily able, or should we try to discern what's what? Do you know what I mean?
I do. It's just the adventure of this continual discovery is just so beautiful. And I'm not going to understand most things, and it's fine. It's wonderful because I don't need to. It's just this being in awe, I suppose, of how amazingly intricate and masterful all of this is. In design terms, it's just incredible. All giving us this opportunity to evolve and grow.
Plasma.
Yeah, it's just beautiful.
It's a whole other topic of conversation for another day.
Absolutely. So I just before we go, I wanted to ask you put a really lovely post on in February with the unicorn constellation.
Oh, yeah.
And it just thought, could you talk just a little bit more about that so we can understand a little bit more about this constellation?
Sure. The unicorn constellation found me several years back because I didn't know as much of a star geek or like thinking I knew a lot about the sky. I never knew there was a unicorn constellation until it found me one night in the night sky. So a lot of people probably know about Sirius, or, Sirius is one of the brightest stars, and it's the Orion belt stars. The 3 Orion belt stars kind of point down towards Sirius. So Sirius is where it is in the sky, and they're kind of across from it. The next brightest star away from Orion, across from it on the horizon is Procyon. So Procyon is actually in the Canis Minor. It's like one of the dog stars, but in between there, and it's not very visually, it's not like Orion where it's like you can see that from all over the globe and it's so recognized, or the Pleiades, which are so recognized. There's not many visible stars in Monoceros or the unicorn constellation, so it's not as well it's not talked about that often or well known. But the Rosette Nebula, the Christmas tree cluster, the Fox Nebula, there's a lot of like deep space objects in that part of the sky. So the Monoceros, the unicorn constellation, is just down from Orion in the sky. And I forget what I posted about it, quite honestly, but it was something, there was like something was with the moon, or there's some alignment that went through. But for me, I think you mentioned like in the starseed at the beginning of the show, like that, like for me, I had this experience out watching the night sky. And I had like this star communication of this like twinkly, like this part of the sky just like was getting my attention. And it wasn't a place that I had seen anything before. And it was, after I went inside, I don't use my phone like outside under the stars because it ruins your night vision. Like, and all people are like, use the phone out there to look. I'm like, no, don't take your phone outside. It's going to like, just go outside under the stars and like chill out and like, let the codes percolate to you. And then when you're back inside where there's artificial light, then look things up. That's my personal advice to people. But unless something's out there that you're like, I need to know, just know that you're ruining your night vision to go inside and look it up. And you'll have to like get your night sky vision back. But anyway, I was out there on my front lawn, even just like looking at things. And I was like, that part of the sky just kept getting my attention. And it's not something that like we're supposed to be able to see with the naked eye. It's not like a thing. But when I looked it up, it was the Rosette Nebula is like the nose of the unicorn. And then there's the Christmas tree cluster is the horn of the unicorn. So ever since I found that, I was just like, it delighted my inner child that there was a unicorn constellation. And I just, keep tabs on it now that I know it exists. Does that answer what you were asking?
Yes, it does, because it's just delightful and it's just lit up everyone's inner child to hear about.
Well, it's like because the unicorn, the unicorns are like elusive, right? They're not like in your face, but they're
that's so beautiful.
I hang out with someone my daughter is like all in on the unicorn thing. Like, not only are they real, they're like in the house, they're like the unicorns and the fairies, let's all be in that inner child place, like the 6-year-old who's like, down with the unicorn.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But what else should I say about it? Or do you have any questions, like direct questions, or is that kind of what you're?
That was it. But I just wanted to find out a little bit more about it. But it's beautiful, and it's a really lovely way to come to a close with you today. Thank you so much, Julie.
I can be playful, right? It's not all like
this is it.
Geeky factoids. It can be that, but it's like it's just really dancing. Like, go out there and see what you see, and see how things like star codes are like this playful. To me, they like have always, from like when I was a little kid, like just the stars had given me this like this, like some people see like movie stars or celebrities. I'm like, I see those stars, like they just make me really happy and giddy, and like I want to see that.
That's beautiful, and everybody's going to have their own interpretation. This is what I love too, and it's all really valid because it's all our own journey, I suppose, as well. So it's beautiful. Thank you so much. I've got this image now of the unicorn with me all day, which is going to be lovely.
So anytime you can see Orion and you can see Sirius, like look that like a little to the left, and the next bright star that you see to the left of Sirius is Procyon. Procyon isn't technically it's in a different, it's in another constellation, one of the dog constellations, Canis Minor, I think. But then in between Sirius and Procyon, that's where the unicorns dance in the sky. But it's, that's the other, I think I put something that I wrote a few years ago, because from the unicorn, Orion, if you see Orion as like one of the depictions in the Greek mythology is Orion, like holding up whatever, he's not the sword that's down below, like he's holding something up. I can't remember what it is, but like from the unicorn constellation, from the horn of the unicorn up and over Orion, over to Taurus, to the Pleiades. I called it the star like travel corridor, because a lot of those stars in that section of the sky, the ones that we see the brightest, are our neighbors in our spiral arm of the galaxy. I think that's what I was talking about.
Oh, Julie, you've got a really beautiful way with explaining things, and it's really visual as well. You just ping little pictures into people's minds, so that's really lovely.
Thank you so much for having this conversation with me tonight.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. And we'll come together again soon.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Bye, everybody. Thank you.